Welcome you all to the valedictory ceremony of the National Seminar on Issues and Challenges of Environment Impact Assessment, organized by CELPIT, ICFI Law School, the ICFI University, Dehradun. I would like to take the privilege to extend a heartwarming welcome to our chief guest for the ceremony, Honorable Justice Geeta Mittal, former Chief Justice, Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Thank you, Ladyship. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and being with us today, ma'am. Also, I would like to extend a warm welcome to the guests of honor, Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar, Professor of Law, NLU Delhi, Professor Dr. Paramjeet S. Jaswal, Vice Chancellor, SRM University, Sonipat, and Professor Dr. S. Ganapati Venkata Subramanian, Professor of Anna University, Chennai. Thank you, guests of honor, for accepting our invitation and gracing the ceremony with your esteemed presence. Thank you, everyone. I would also extend a warm welcome to Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore, Dean, ICFI Law School, Dehradun, and Mrs. Monica Kharola, Academic Coordinator, ICFI Law School, Dehradun. I would also like to welcome all the participants who have joined us today in this ceremony. And with this, now I would like to pass on the mic to Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore, Dean, ICFI Law School, Dehradun, to address the gathering. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Miss Anishmi Jain, Assistant Professor of ICFI Law School, Dehradun. Respected chief guest of this valedictory session, Honorable Madam Justice Geeta Mittal, former CJ, High Court of Jammu and Kashmir. Respected guest of honor, Professor Dr. Paramjeet Singh Jaswal Sahab, VC, earlier RJMLU, Rajiv Gandhi National Law University, and now VC of SRM, Sonpat. Professor Venkat Subramaniam ji, a close friend of mine, and then Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar from NLU Delhi, distinguished academicians from different universities, but the organizing team of this particular seminar from CELPIT, ICFI Law School, and my student friends. It has been very nice that that you are here. You are my chief guest and other distinguished galaxy of personalities are here to in this valedictory session of National Seminar, Issues and Challenges on Environment Impact Assessment. In fact, this session started from yesterday with the inaugural, and at the inaugural, we had with us our one of the chief guests as Honorable Madam Justice Gyansudha Mishra ji, former Judge, Supreme Court of India, a great environmental jurist, Professor Dr. M.K. Ramesh, National Law School of India University, Professor Dr. Shraddha Kumar, and Professor Dr. R. Harita Devi. In the inaugural session, we have learned a lot with a very lucid and comprehensive data with regards to environment impact assessment was given to the students, and side by side the issues and challenges which are there was clearly demarcated. Today we had this technical session. There were 4 technical sessions, and the technical sessions were chaired by Professor Dr. A.K. Pandey from Garhwal University, and I was also co-chairman. Then technical session 2 was by S.P. Rathod Sahab from Gujarat University, and Dr. Ashish Kumar Singhal, Associate Professor from this university. And then third was there Professor Vish Kalyan Das from Nirma University, and Mr. Saurabh from our university. Then fourth technical session was chaired by Professor L.K. Dev and Madam Monica Kharola from Professor L.K. Dev from Dean of the Birla Global University. And then I would like to congratulate all the organizers that there were as many as 55 papers presented. And all the papers which were presented were very, very good. They were full of substance, content, and data. And as we have decided earlier, in every session, we will be awarding the best presenter. So best presenter list is here with me. I'll declare it later on. Now coming to valedictory session of the day today, we have successfully completed the national seminar. Now valedictory session is there. Here we have our esteemed honorable chief guest. So from the core of my heart, thank her for sparing her valuable time. And then I wholeheartedly welcome you with folded hand that you are here with us to bless this particular gathering where many intellectuals are there who have dealt with many experts are there from environmental law field. Then further, I thank very much our Professor Dr. Jaswal Sahab, who has been very kind enough to spare his valuable time. I know sir is very, very busy. And earlier he was the Vice Chancellor of the Rajiv Gandhi National University. Now he is there at SRM. So, and sir has been always a source of inspiration and guidance to us. So sir has been here today. We are very much grateful to sir. And I, with folded hand, I wholeheartedly welcome you, sir, to this valedictory session. Further, I, from the core of my heart, I welcome Mr. Professor Subramaniam Sahab, who has been a good friend of mine from very long time. And of course, I had an opportunity to meet today him here. So it is a golden opportunity, and we'll have more such programs to meet each other. And another guest of ours is Madam Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar from NLU Delhi. And all of these personalities, those who are here today, we are very, very fortunate that they are experts and in environmental law, and so to call, they are all jurists. So with that, I think we are very fortunate, and all the participants who are there, who have been deliberating upon for last yesterday and have a nice experience, learned a lot, will certainly be learning a lot today from this valedictory session. With this, I thank one and all, everyone here, and then I hand over the mic again to Anishmi Jani. I've exceeded my time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words, sir. Now I would request Mr. Vishal Vera, Faculty of Law, to kindly introduce our first speaker for the day, Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar, Professor of Law, NLU Delhi. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. First, I extend a very warm welcome to all the chief guests and the guest of honors for the session. Now to introduce the same, first I'm going to introduce Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar. Dr. Bharti is a professor of law at NLU Delhi. She joined NLU Delhi in 2009. She has a long experience of teaching law since 1998. She has been a student of Delhi University and has taught at the Faculty of Law, Law Center 1 and Law Center 2 DU before 2009, except for a brief stint at Amity Law School for 6 months. She has also been the visiting faculty at Indian Law Institute, Institute of Constitution and Parliamentary Studies, the Bureau of Parliamentary Studies and Training, etc. She has published various and several articles and also has made paper presentation on various topics of law. She has coordinated several workshops, seminar at DU and National Law University, Delhi. She is now involved as a faculty coordinator for legal aid activities in NLU Delhi. She has taught across a wide range of subjects. Her area of interest are constitutional law, environmental law, family law, and criminology. She has done her PhD in alternate dispute resolution with emphasis on the Lok Adalat in Delhi. We extend a warm welcome to you, ma'am. The mic is over to you, ma'am, for the session.
Yes. Thank you so much. I would like to extend my very warm greetings to Honorable Justice Geeta Mittal ma'am, an exceptional judge luminary, a fantastic human being, and an inspiring persona. To Professor Jaswal sir, an eminent scholar and an extremely proficient administrator. To Professor S. Ganpati, who's a very well-known environmental expert and academician. And of course, Professor Yugal Kishore, who's the Dean at ICFI, who has provided immense leadership to legal institutions, including the IFCAI. Further to Mr. Vishal Bera, who has organized this immense conference, and the faculty, students, and participants to the national seminar on environment impact assessment. I'm sure the various technical sessions that have taken place must have been extremely fruitful. When we look at the subject on hand, especially in the present context of the pandemic, there is an immediate interconnectedness that is observed between different elements of the ecosystem, and a stark truth which we face, that human beings cannot exist without nature, whereas nature can exist without human beings. Environment impact assessment, which is a very significant tool of environmental management, decision making, and governance, is extremely interdisciplinary. It is multi-step. It is a precautionary. It emphasizes the precautionary principle. It is highly interactive, and it is a collaborative process. So we find that the broader international environmental legal framework, in this, the environment impact assessment is a settled principle. In fact, there is the Rio Conference, further the Climate Change, United Nations Framework on Climate Change, the Convention on Biodiversity, the Aarhus Convention, the ESPO EIA Convention, the EIA Convention in the transboundary context. So there are various complements to the international environmental framework, and supplemented also by the ICJ, very important case of pulp mills on the river Uruguay, in which EIA has been formally recognized as a distinguished principle. In the national jurisdictions, we also find the earliest application through the NEPA of 1969 of the US. The three prominent post-2015 agendas that are facing the world in terms of the Paris Agreement, in terms of the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction, and in the form of the Sustainable Development Goals, they are adequately representative of the fact that EIA can become a very important tool as a kind of mechanism for implementing all these very important agendas. We find further in the best practices of the EIA across the world systems, the various jurisdictions, US, apart from the developed countries as US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, and EU, of course, many developing countries now, in fact, 187 countries, 183 countries out of 197 countries have adopted EIA as part of environmental governance system. So the whole character of EIA is pretty representative, and the cumulative impact assessment as part of EIA, which was also referred to by Professor M.K. Krishnan yesterday, Mahesh Krishnaji. So we find that yes, there is a lot of takeaway from the way the system is implemented in the Western jurisdictions, and especially the strategic environment assessment that has become a very important component. There are many takeaways to this. In the Indian context, the various notifications that have come up under the Environment Protection Act of 1994 initially, and then 2006, and the most recent draft notification, it gives us ample, the kind of the parameters on which to gauge the EIA have been many. So in the present day context, the most latest draft notification, and this is to be viewed in the background of the constitutional, the scheme that is represented by the Article 48A or Article 51AG or even Article 21, that clearly prescribes right to clean and healthy environment. In this background, there are certain critical elements that have emerged in the draft notification in relation to exemption, the kind of post facto approvals, violations that can be regularized by monetizing, the penalties, the offenses, the public consultation process, which is at the heart of EIA, and which really has been diluted to a certain extent by the kind of timeline that is that is present by shortening it from 30 to 20 days. The duration of projects itself that has now become wider. For example, in mining projects, it has been extended from 30 to 50 years. The compliance mechanisms that have now they have been widened to 1 year instead of 6 months. So this whole kind of the various elements of EIA presently, there is a lot which is left for improvements, and there are certain lacunas which can really be exploited for the purpose of yes, of course, the ease of doing business is and the efficiency considerations is paramount, but the environmental performance of the country has also to be kept in mind, and sustainable development, as we understand, to integrate the broad objectives of environment development and social justice must be obtained. Uh, Now, there are certain aspects, which there are just two elements which I'd like to emphasize as a kind of my final set of inputs. One is that the principle of non-regression. This is a principle that has emerged in a little more recently, especially since 2010, and it invokes that whatever are the environmental norms that have been institutionalized, that have been accepted and recognized at any given point of time, must not be diluted, and they need to be strengthened. There should not be a recession of environmental laws or any kind of existing the kind of environmental protection that exists, and there must be the standards of application must be strengthened and must not be in any way regressed. So that is one principle of environmental law that must be kept in mind. And for the purpose of EIA, that becomes a huge indicator of how things should be. The second is that EIA has been part of notifications under the Environment Protection Act of 1986. And we are aware that not the administrative, but it is the under the delegated legislation, which is also part of law. There have been several amendments to this whole, gamut of experience from 1994 up to now, and there is a need perhaps to look at a more formal, exercise or existence of EIA as part of the formal process of law. So I guess I would just end my discussion here And I'm extremely thankful to EXFI for extending this opportunity for me to express my thoughts on the subject. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for delivering such an informative session, ma'am. And it was actually great to get so much of knowledge from your end, ma'am. Thank you. Moving forward, I would request Mr. Vishal Bera, Faculty of Law, to kindly introduce our second speaker for the evening, Professor Dr. Paramjeet S. Jaswal, Vice Chancellor, SRM University, Sonipat. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. As I stated yesterday also, and from today's session also, I would like to repeat one sentence that some name in India do not require some introduction or a brief introduction to the same. So, to introduce Professor Paramjeet S. Jaswal, he was the former Vice Chancellor of Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law, Punjab. As we all know, he is an excellent academician par excellence with vast and rich experience of 33 years in the field of teaching and research. He is a keen researcher with 3 decades of experience, and to his credit, he has 66 research papers published in various reputed national as well as international journals and books. He has presented a multitude of research papers in numerous seminars and conferences, and is also guiding and supervising LLM as well as PhD students. He has a varied expertise in the field of constitutional law, administrative law, human rights, and environmental law. Till date, he has published and edited 15 books on vital topics in law. His book on environmental law, second edition of 2003, which is acclaimed in the legal field and has been cited thrice by the Supreme Court of India in the landmark judgment, which is reported in the noise pollution case, which is 2005 case. And we welcome you, sir, in the ceremony of the valedictory ceremony. The mic and the dash over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vishal. I remember him as one of the favorite students. Honorable Mrs. Justice Geeta Mithilji, Dr. S. Ganpati, Professor Bharati, Professor Yugal Kishore, and Mr. Vishal, and all those who are present here in this valediction. Whenever I'm called upon to speak in a valediction, I'm in a dilemma. The dilemma is that we are supposed to speak on the topic which has already been discussed, debated, and presented in the previous sessions. And there is a risk. The risk is quite high because whatever I'm going to speak about, that might have been spoken in much more detail than what I'm going to speak about. At the same time, I do not know in which direction the discussion and the debate has taken place. Nevertheless, I'll share my thoughts on the topic and continue the threads, picking up the threads from where Professor Bharati left, beautifully explaining the impact, environmental impact assessment through the legal notification and the evolution of the same. As far as the environment pollution is concerned, I think we all are aware. When we wish to protect the environment from pollution, one of the methods is that we can take some action beforehand before we undertake any activity, and that is why the concept of sustainable development started. That we can't stop the process of the development, but while doing the development, we must also take care of the environment. And how that we can do it, there are a number of means and ways they have been developed. In law, we talk about certain legal principles which are kept in mind while making the developmental process. And one of them is the principle is of environmental impact assessment, though it is not a principle totally based on law. It is a combination of various factors. I'll take you back to the Brundtland Commission, which was formed in 1983 and submitted a report in 1987. it culled out 8 principles of sustainable development when it talked about the universal definition of sustainable development were presented to meet the demands of the present generation without compromising the need and ability of the future generation. At that time, one of the principles out of the 8 principles which were culled out by the Brundtland Commission report, which is popularly known as the book Our Common Future, that is the prior environmental assessment. That whenever we are going to take up any developmental project, if we can make an assessment prior to that how it is going to affect the environment and take the remedial factors into consideration and steps to remedify the same, then probably the environmental harm can be prevented. And further to this principle, basic principle, the other principles of sustainable development were developed. And one of the most relevant to the topic in hand is the precautionary principle. When we talk about environment impact assessment, it has a close relationship with the precautionary principle. In fact, it is the other side of the coin of the precautionary principle. The precautionary principle is based on 3 elements. First of all, we should anticipate that if we take any activity, then what is going to be the impact on the environment? After we have calculated scientifically or otherwise the impact of our activity on the environment, because environment destruction is the byproduct of human activities or action or inaction on the part of the human beings. Either we take an action which destroys the environment, or we do not take the appropriate action which result into the destruction of the environment. So the first element is anticipation. We anticipate by calculating the environmental harm which is going to be there. After the calculation, the second element is prevention. We prevent that this is going to be the harm, how it can be prevented, we take the preventive step. And in spite of that, it's still, if the environmental harm takes place, maybe due to accident, maybe due to unforced circumstances, or whatever may be the reason, then the third element comes into the play, that is attack. I take example of construction of a dam. When we start constructing of a dam, the immediate environment impact assessment that is required to be made is how much flora and fauna is going to be covered under the water. Similarly, how much habitation is going to be displaced in terms of human beings. And then in order to keep the balance in the nature, in the ecosystem, we try to create a niche around that ecosystem where we can have more flora, we can have more space for the fauna, and we also provide the alternative sites to the inhabitants. But sometimes we do not anticipate the unforeseen circumstances, like what happened in Uttarakhand a couple of months back, when suddenly one of the dam broke and the water came down and it destroyed a number of human lives as well as the ecosystem down the drains. So while making an environmental impact assessment, though we anticipate, we try to prevent, we take preventive action also, but sometimes the environmental impact assessment remains to the immediate harm which is going to be there to the environment. It does not take into consideration the long-term effect of it or unforeseen happening which may take place. So one of the challenges of environment or the issues which there about the environmental impact assessment is that environmental impact assessment is not only to take into consideration the immediate effect on the environment, but it should also take into consideration the unforeseen happening which may take place or the long-term effect of that. Another example, the most popular example you can take from the Bhopal gas leakage. The plant of Union Carbide was allowed to be established in Bhopal. The precautionary measures were taken, but nobody anticipated at that time that if by accident the gas leakage is there, then how much harm it will cause not only to the environment but to the human being. Same thing happened in Vishakhapatnam. So it is very important that even in the absence of scientific means to answer the future happening, if it is ascertainable, then it is not a problem. We can take preventive steps accordingly because we have the scientific means. But many a times there are unpredictable things. And whenever any project is undertaken where we take the environment impact assessment, which I'm so happy to say, thanks to our judiciary, thanks to our honorable judges of the high courts and the Supreme Court, they, through various judicial decisions and subsequently, as Bharati very rightly elaborated, Professor Bharati, that we have number of notification with regard to the environment impact assessment from time to time, with a lot of amendment from time to time. We have been making it mandatory that no developmental project can be taken, no human activity which interfere with the environment can be allowed to be undertaken unless we make the proper environment impact assessment. This polluter pays principle has now been further expanded in its meaning and scope. Now the judiciary has started imposing environmental compensation. So if environment impact assessment has not been taken properly, or despite environment impact assessment, if any activity has been undertaken and subsequently the damage is caused to the environment, then the court imposes the environmental compensation on the developer, on the undertaker of that activity, and the person or that organization or the industry is asked to restore back the environment to the original position before that activity was undertaken. But the most important factor remains to be considered is that is the challenge for us. How long with uncertainty we can continue to interfere with the environment without the safety of which it is difficult to live on this Mother Earth planet or to save this planet. And therefore, the biggest challenge I find in the environment impact assessment is to anticipate unforeseeable happening, which may be beyond the control if they have they happen suddenly, and for which we do not have the scientific means to develop. This is the topic of such an importance which keeps on evolving, because it is not a static thing. Today, the science and technology is developing so fast, and same is the story with regard to the impact of the science and technology on the environmental destruction. And therefore, this environmental impact assessment has to be taken very seriously. Like we have NERI in Nagpur. Most of the governmental project, they take the help of NERI, National Environmental Engineering Institute of Nagpur. We have to establish more number of such institutions in the country so that it becomes for each developer, for each organization, each industry to have the proper environment impact assessment, and more research is required to be done so that we can at least anticipate the future harm. With these words, once again, I thank Professor Yugul Kishore and his wonderful team who have organized this seminar. Thank you very much. I'm confident, though I wanted to attend the seminar since yesterday, but due to busy schedule, I could not. but I understand that it has gone very well, and the material which has been presented at the seminar will go a long way in adding to the legal literature on the subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for delivering such an insightful session, sir. And I would say it was indeed a very knowledgeable one, sir. Thank you. Moving forward, I would request Mr. Vishal Bera, Faculty of Law, to kindly introduce our third speaker for the evening, Professor Dr. S. Ganapati Venkata Subramanian, Professor, Anna University, Chennai. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. To introduce Dr. S. Ganapati, he is a professor of Center for Environmental Studies at Anna University, Chennai. He has guided numerous, or you can say more than 98 students for project works which include like ME, MSc, and MBA. He has his PhD in Environmental Management and Law. He was also appointed as a member Board of Studies for Thiruvallur University, Vellore, Tamil Nadu for MSc Environmental Sciences. He was also recognized for his service and was being nominated by His Excellency Governor of Tamil Nadu for the Senate member of the Tamil Nadu Dr. Ambedkar Law University, Chennai. In the year of 2020, he has delivered more than 50 guest lecture on the topic related to environmental awareness. Recently, in the year 2020, he has been awarded for the contribution towards environmental cause the Environmentalist Award 2020 by Agriculture and Environmental Technology Development Society, Udham Singh Nagar, Uttarakhand, India, on the occasion of International Web Conference Preservative on Agriculture and Applied Science in COVID-19 Scenario. He was awarded for his excellence in teaching and research award 2018 by the Asian Management Economic Commerce Association, which is affiliated to International Economic Association at Spain, at a function which was held at Jaya University of Art and Science, Chennai. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation for the guest of honor at the valedictory ceremony. Over to you, sir. The dais is over to you.
Thank you, thank you. So most respected honorable members sitting on the dais, Professor Dr. Jaswal Ji, the honorable Vice Chancellor of the SRM University, and the most respected Professor Dr. Bharati Kumar of National University, Delhi, Professor the Honorable Justice Mitchell G, then Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore Ji, Dean and former Vice Chancellor, and my very good friend at the outside in our Indian side. Why I am saying this one means my name is happened to be Ganapati. Ganapati should come in the beginning, but unfortunately Ganapati is coming at the end. Similarly, what happened with the environmental legislation in the year 1974 is that the first Water Act came, but in the year 1986 only the environmental policy came. Usually the policy must come first, but later on only the law will be coming. But this has happened in the other way. Like that, sometimes in Indian condition this will happen. In fact, I could able to recollect my nostalgic memories, what I shared with Professor Dean Yugal Kishore Ji long back, some 2.5 decades back, 25 years back, and attending what is this one, FDP in the environmental law at the National Law School.
High Court. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce the chief guest of the evening, Honorable Justice Geeta Mittal, leadership, who is known as one of the most.
Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes, it is known as she's the most humble leadership in India, and as having served as the first woman chief justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, Justice Geeta Mittal is also the first woman chairperson of BCCC. Justice Mittal, an alumna of Lady Irwin School, New Delhi, and Lady Sri Ram College for Women, she earned her degree in law from Faculty of Law, Delhi University. Her legal and judicial career dates back to 1981. After serving as a judge and acting Chief Justice of Delhi High Court, she was appointed the Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court in 2018. She has also been awarded with the Alumni Award and the Nari Shakti Puraskar Award. Before her elevation as Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, she had served as a judge of the Delhi High Court since 2004 and also went on to serve as acting Chief Justice. Justice Geeta Mittal's unparalleled contribution to society has been recognized multiple times. For instance, the President of India conferred upon her with the Nari Shakti Puraskar 2017, the country's highest civilian honor for women. She has also received the P.N. Bhagwati Award 2019 at the Capital Foundation National Awards in the recognition of her stellar judicial work towards access to justice and her innovation in designing the Vulnerable Witness Disposition Complex. We are privileged to have you, ma'am, as the chief guest for the valedictory ceremony, and the dais and the mic is over to you, leadership.
Thank you, Vishal. Professor Dr. Jugal Kishore, Dean ICFI Law School, Professor Dr. Paramjeet S. Jaswal, Professor Dr. S.J. Venkat Subramaniam, Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar, Dr. Vishal Behra, Professor Anushpriya, faculty of the university, students, as well as other participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to congratulate ICFI University and its department looking after environmental studies at this wonderful initiative. So badly needed, so timely, and as was said by Professor Jugal Kishore ji, the extent of participation and the number of papers itself elaborates and manifests the significance of this national seminar on issues and challenges of environmental impact assessment. Coming from Jammu and Kashmir, having spent 2.5 years in Jammu and Kashmir, I had opportunity to closely deal with issues relating to EIA. The last judgment, which I actually delivered from the Jammu High Court, while in the Jammu High Court, related to the the manner in which a gateway was given by the state legislation, taking the shield of their special status, and incorporating a rule in their mining rules, which enabled parties who had sought, approval, environmental clearances to undertake mining activity even while the approval application was still pending. As a result, large-scale mining of minor minerals, especially from riverbeds, running into lakhs and lakhs of tons, was undertaken without any mining clearances. So I had an opportunity to judicially deal with the necessity and the impact of environmental clearances, and saw how badly what the detrimental impact that a mining activity could actually have, especially on a riverbed. It impacts the entire ecosphere from every effect possible, the flora, the fauna, and ecology. So, what is environmental impact assessment? I think after 2 days of deliberating on the issues and challenges, you don't need to be led through the details. And I will really actually sum up the presentation which I had made, having heard dear Bharti, who is so learned and worked so hard on her papers, Professor Jaspal Singh, as well as Dr. Venkat Subramaniam, real experts on the subject. I really feel I should have attended the 2 day seminar to learn rather than be a guest at the valedictory. In any case, the last speaker has a very tired audience. The actually what an EIA does is it studies the environment and impact of of anthropogenic activities on the environment. As Bharti said, it is a process which is really in the nature of a planning tool whereby assessments are undertaken to examine the environmental consequences or impact, both beneficial and adverse, of a proposed development project, as well as to ensure that these impacts are taken into account in a project design. Simply put, it is an exercise to forecast and evaluate all impacts of a proposed project and suggest a plausible alternative. Impacts would include all relevant aspects of the natural, economic, human as well as the social environment. Any study of the EIA necessarily involves a multidisciplinary scientific approach as well as assessment of the feasibility stage of the project. It is therefore widely referred to as the technocratic paradigm and is undertaken by qualified engineers and scientists. We are very well informed about the origins and evolution of EIA. It began in the United States of America and was recognized in the late 1960s. The environmental impact of actions of large infrastructure agencies in charge of water resource projects, highways, energy facilities, etc., led to the US National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, NEPA. By early 1990s, over 40 countries had EIA. Today, the impact of human activity on the environment is recognized in over 100 countries. In India, environmental issues, of course, began receiving attention in 1969 under the fourth five-year plan. Conversations in EIA began in 1976 when the Planning Commission requested the Department of Science and Technology, a part of Department of Agriculture, to consider river valley projects from the point of ecology. 1970 onward saw the several enactments as pointed out. 1972, the Wildlife Protection Act. 74, the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act. The Forest Conservation Act of 1980. The Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981. The growing importance of issues related to environment is also evident that till 1980, the subject of environment and forests was the concern of the Ministry of Agriculture. As the Department of Science and Technology, in 1985, we find that the subject is upgraded to a full-fledged ministry, that is the Ministry of Environment and Forests. It has further changed to the Ministry of Environment, Forests and Climate Change, again showing the importance attached by the Government of India to the issues relating to environment. Also we see the growing statutory and regulatory framework. We are familiar with the guidelines for environmental assessment of river valley projects, which were concerned with the impact on the forest and wildlife in the submergence zones, water logging, potential upstream and downstream aquatic ecosystems, fisheries, water-related diseases, climate change, and even seismicity. We just heard the significant impact of the huge tragedy seen in Bhopal on the 2nd of December 1984, when 30 tons of highly toxic gas called ethyl isocyanate was escaped into from the pesticide plant of the Union Carbide pesticide in Bhopal, which was surrounded by shanty towns. More than 6 lakh people were exposed to deadly gas clouds. This tragedy was termed as the world's worst industrial disaster, and we still haven't recovered. If it can be called a positive impact, this tragedy led to the enactment of the Environment Protection Act 1986 in India. But even this law did not contain any explicit provision for an EIA. Formal recognition at the international level was accorded in 1992 to EIA in the Earth Summit. Principle 17 of the Rio Declaration stated that, I quote, EIA as a national instrument shall be undertaken for the proposed activities that are likely to have significant adverse effect on the environment and are subject to a decision of a competent national authority. We reacted on the 27th of November 1994 when the government of India in exercise of powers under Section 3 and Rule 5 of the Environment Protection legislations issued the environmental impact notification. very, very important. By virtue of this, environmental clearances were required for projects listed in Schedule 1. There is a graded requirement of projects which are required to be cleared at the national level and those which are required to be cleared at the state level. However, unfortunately, since 1994, there have been 12 amendments to this notification, each time diluting the restrictions further and further. The last one is the amendment proposed in March 2020, which Bharti has pointed out that it further dilutes the requirements to several industries. It extends the the exemptions and significantly reduces the opportunity of public consultation and participation, which is one of the most important stages of the environmental impact assessment. This draft has yet to crystallize and be issued as a formal document, but I hope the difficulties which have been pointed out are looked at. There are also, we see another major criticism that public consultation is envisaged at only once after and that too in the draft rules of 2020 only once, which too is after the draft EIA report has been prepared. It has been said that the proposed 2020 suggestion results in a worse situation that existed because of the limitation it has cast on the public participation. The reduction in the time given to the public for sending feedback in this notification is also absolutely critical and deserves to be looked at. Now, processing of EIA has several steps to it, but there are several drawbacks. One of these drawbacks which has been seen, which is faced at the screening stage, is the exemption to the industries, which is based from the EIA requirement, which is based on the investment value of the specific project, overlooking technological processes. Also, teams which are formed for EIM assessments lack expertise in specialized fields. For instance, no sociological impact is assessed, and we see that no anthropologists are included in the EIA. I apologize for this. We also see that even in the identification stage, identification of the impacts, there is a extreme difficulty faced on account of lack of reliable data sources, no secondary data being available. There is lack of respect on the part of data collectors to indigenous knowledge of the affected local population. The credibility of the primary data collected is also dubious. The detailed methods which are used for prediction and evaluation of the project are not mentioned in the report, which is another shortfall and shortcoming. Now some of the steps which are required to be, which are incorporated in an EIA report include not only the impacts, but also steps which the industry is required to undertake. So sometimes, very rarely though, is the recommendation that the situs of the project requires to be changed because of its detrimental effect. There is also conditional clearance given in the sense of compliance with the pollution control norms, etc. The evaluation takes an exercise of assessing whether the adverse impact is significant enough to warrant mitigation, and steps for mitigation, which include, as I pointed out, changing location or changing the route, changing the technical process, raw materials, operating and disposal methods, timing or engineering design, then waste disposal measures, then also mitigation steps which would include restoration of damaged resources, compensation or to affected persons, and other concessions on other issues or off-site programs is required to be undertaken. While we have attempted in India to have an EIA regime, however, there are extreme shortfalls which you must have dealt with and elaborated. Some of the shortfalls which come to my mind is the fact that it is conducted as a one-time exercise, whereas the project process is both cyclical and iterative. Then the EIA exercise is undertaken long after the project proponents become attached to a particular design concept and would be very reluctant to effect any changes in the decisions and the 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 investment which they have undertaken. The drawbacks in EIA assessments include qualitative deficiencies, incomplete reports which are premised on incorrect data. Most EIA reports are found to be routine, lacking scientific basis, with only commercial needs and views taken into consideration. I have also been told that EIA studies are run by persons who are ex-foresters and former bureaucrats who know how to beat the system rather than save the environment. Funding for the EIA is provided by the very agency or the individual whose primary interest is to procure the clearance. EIA is also assigned to any authority or agency which is working in geographical proximity of the project site, irrespective of whether it has specialization or not. For instance, it is told that the EIA report of the proposed oil exploration group, oil exploration on the coast of Odisha by the Reliance Group was assigned to the Life Sciences Department of the Berhampur University, which has no expertise on the study of turtles or their life cycles who were inhabiting the site. The EIA document is bulky, technical, difficult to decipher. No centralized baseline data bank is available. No standing list of authorized agencies is prepared with updation and or without any cross verification. In case in India, there is bound to be a conflict between infrastructure needs and the concerns to protect the environment. Government officials are bound to maintain the fine balance without any bias or political interference, and data should be such that it can be trusted. Defense-related projects, constructions, railway projects are explicitly exempted from EIA notification. Other projects which are located in zones covered by other notifications, say the CRZ notifications, are exempt from EIA notification. It is not as if these projects do not have an environmental impact. They significantly impact the environment. And certainly we need to look at the method by which the construction of these projects also comports to the needs of the environment and does not significantly impact. Also, we have difficulty in monitoring and implementation of the projects. I have noted many issues, but I see that I am run out of time. So I will conclude with just a sum up that EIA is universally accepted as essential before implementation of a project which adversely affects the environment. The success depends on availability of technical, financial, physical, qualified, and experienced human resources. Both technical guidelines for carrying out the phases of EIA, the conditions on which the clearance has been granted should be transparent and completely in the public domain so that they can be scrutinized by the public constantly. The process requires to be efficiently updated and keeping pace with current developments in the field of environment protection. Clear standards for accreditation for experts, review of their performance, and if inefficient, removal from the panel should be incorporated. The process of public hearing of affected communities and stakeholders requires to be streamlined and undertaken. Then EIA legislations and notifications and regulations required to be scrutinized for their compliance with the spirit, intent, and purpose of the Environment Protection Act. Clear standards are required to be laid down. EIA, while legislation and government programs cannot anticipate every negative or positive impact of a project, EIA does not ensure all projects with significant adverse effects will be stopped. The debate on conflicting demands between economic benefits derived out of a specific project and negative impact on the environment will go on perpetually until we as citizens recognize that our health and well-being as well as lives of our children are absolutely dependent on a healthy and thriving environment. Until and unless we recognize that a tree is worth more alive than dead, that a river is worth more clean than polluted, we will continue to embark on this destructive trajectory eternally. I have no manner of doubt that there can be no compromise with the concerns of the environment, which have to be accorded supremacy at all costs. Anything short shall have disastrous consequences for mankind. My readings have shown that at a global level, efforts are being made to apply EIA to every new range of problems. Increasingly, the impact of a project on global warming and biological diversity is receiving attention. The entire effort at the global level is to minimize conflict between projects and the environmental concerns, ensuring sustainable development. In a whale of economic progress, India appears to be on a verge of a large scale may be on a verge of a large scale environmental catastrophe, which will result in a highly destructive future for us and those who come after us. Short-term economic progress cannot be given more importance than the long-term health of citizens. We often don't realize how powerful one individual can be, how powerful each one of you can be. Each one of you has the power to bring change. We often don't realize how powerful and what all you people can do. The change starts with awareness. Know about EIA laws and of the projects in your area. Participate and make your voice heard in public hearings. Take your friends and family along with you and make it a picnic. Educate yourself and those around you of the harmful effects of climate change, deforestation, and pollution. Learn about the EIA process, how the government and the legislature functions, how bills are passed, etc. This knowledge will empower you, make your voice heard. Follow the news and developments in the environmental sector. Know when new bills are being passed, read them or read the analysis available on news websites and participate in the democratic process. Vote for candidates who support environmental measures. I quote here, here is the quotation, unless someone like you cares a lot, cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It is not, unquote. The laureate, Dr. Seuss. I would like to remind you of the powerful statement made by Gandhiji when he said, be the change you want to see in the world. Therefore, programs like the present one are invaluable in increasing sensitization to the issues of the environment. I congratulate the organizers for this initiative and look forward to further opportunities to examine these concerns with you in the future as well. Thank you for your time, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, leadership. Thank you so much for such a beautifully elaborative session and also enlightening us with several facts in relation to the theme of our national seminar, that is Environment Impact Assessment. Thank you so much. Now I would call upon Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore, Dean, EIA Law School, to announce the best presenters of the technical sessions. Over to you, sir. So kindly unmute yourself. Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you very much, Madam Anishmiji. So as I told in the beginning that there were as many as 55 papers presented by various participants from Pan India. And almost all the papers were very good, very valuable, and wherein a lot of substance and data was available. But then we decided that for in every session, we will be awarding one participant. Therefore, though papers were wonderfully, many papers were very good and they could not get the award, but then the presentation of their presentation and their enlightenment to the each and every participant there is itself an award. In fact, when we work for environment, you see, we work for ourselves, we work for our society, we work for our future generation, and that is the best award. These monetary or certificate awards are nothing in that concern. So I wish that all of you who have taken steps here for this under this national conference is to be congratulated. But then I have to, I have been assigned the duty to declare the names. So in the technical session 1, Madam Nidhi Singh Arora, Assistant Professor, Amity University. In the technical session 2, Mr. Neeraj Sharma, Assistant Professor, Nirma University. In the technical session 3, Mitali Rawat, a student of NUSRL Ranchi, NLU Ranchi. And the 4th, of course, it is a joint paper which was there by Professor Shivanand and Mrs. Asma Thunsha ji. Please, if my pronunciation is wrong, I may be excused because sometimes these pronunciations are very difficult. So in this way, in every technical session, one participant, one presenter has been awarded. And I will request all the participants, those who have presented paper here, they may update their paper after the deliberations of the seminar. And if they wish that it should be presented, it should be published, they can send it to us. If we find sufficient number of papers, then we will publish them. So that is there. So now I on my part thank everyone, every participant, every presenter, and especially all the guests who are here, especially our Madam Leadership Geeta Mittalji and Venkat Subramaniam sir, Madam Professor Bharti's madam, and others who are here for this particular purpose. Our professor, a very learned man, I have not used the word. I know he has been very helpful to us in the beginning also. Professor Paramjit Singh Jaswal Sahab, who has been the Vice Chancellor of NLU, HNLU, and then again the Rajiv Gandhi National University, and then now at SRM. So all the persons, though I know where you are, they were all very busy, but you have been here. So I'm very much thankful to all of you. Now back to Anishmi.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. And congratulations to all the winners. Now with this, I would now call upon Mrs. Monica Kharola, Academic Coordinator, ICFAI Law School, to deliver vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anushmi. It's my privilege and honor to give this vote of thanks, because it's been a journey since yesterday, and it has touched upon the most important aspect of EIA in order to see that the projects that are taken up are viable and they do not impact the environment adversely. And this is the call of the day, and it has been very well put up by our chief guest and our guest of honor, who have stressed upon the need for EIA in order to have a better environment for ourselves and even for our future generations. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the chief guest for this valedictory session, Honorable Chief Justice Geeta Mittal ma'am, former Chief Justice of Jammu and Kashmir High Court, Professor Dr. Paramjeet S. Jaswal, Professor Dr. S.G. Venkata Subramaniam, Professor Dr. Bharti Kumar. They have been here to the valedictory session and have given their important views on EIA. I also thank the chief guest for wonderfully summarizing the contents of EIA and sharing her experience of the cases in Jammu and Kashmir. Ma'am has very well put in how not only the great philosophers, but even the economists, the environmentalists, and everyone has a stake in seeing that this EIA becomes an important factor of all projects and everything that we take up, because environment is the most crucial factor which will sustain humankind and humanity on this earth. So it is our duty not only to learn, propagate, and make people aware, but like ma'am said, that it is our duty as citizens and individuals to be ourselves aware of the impact that projects and activities are going to have on us and on our lives, and therefore we must advocate it and be very, very particular of participating in the public debate and discourse in order to see that EIA becomes effective and that we are able to use it for what it is meant to be. So thank you, everyone. I thank all the participants who have, worked for 1 or 2 months in preparing their papers and coming for this national conference. It's been wonderful listening to you all as chairs and co-chairs have given their feedback, that you all have wonderfully presented your ideas and your suggestions and what are your opinion on EIA. So it's been a learning process for all of us, and we hope that it contributes to this important topic. And I would like to thank Professor Yugal Kishore, the force behind this national seminar. I also thank the faculty coordinators, Mr. Vishal Bera and Ms. Anushmi Jain, for their hard work and their continuous effort towards bringing in such great guests for us for this event, who have very painfully, taken up the effort to make us more aware and to share their experiences and their ideas. And I thank the IT members who have supported us in this event. So thank you, everyone. And thank you especially to our chief guest and our guest of honor for being with us and making this event so successful. Thank you. And over to you, Anushmi.
No, you're unmute. Please unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. So, sir, with your due permission, shall we?
Okay, thank you. So with folded hand, I thank everyone. And now you can close the session.
So one thing, sir. We should actually also thank our student members of the CELPIT body,
please,
also along with us worked really hard towards this seminar also. So some 2 words from your mouth to our student member of the
Okay,
celebrate
okay.
body, sir.
No,
All the
actually,
students are present here. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. All are present. So very good.
Yes, sir.
In fact, it's a matter of fact what our Vishal sir has said, that along with Vishal and Anishmi, you all have worked very, very efficiently, and you have taken pain to see that this particular event of national seminar is successful. In fact, nowadays things are a little better, but of course, when I was there, we used to say that organizing a national seminar is like marrying a daughter, where number of persons you have to they come, they stay, and they present their paper, and we have to see that they are properly feeded up, and all their requirements are being fulfilled. In fact, when I was young like you, I have conducted 3 national seminars. I know how much pain it is one has to take in organizing, but of course, because it is online, so the pain is less, but nevertheless pain is there. So because number of papers are coming, you have to gather them, you have to systematize them, you have to contact each and every guest and participants. You have to see their timing, everything you have to do. And in fact, I congratulate every member, including our IT team, that very systematically, diligently, sincerely, honestly, with hard work, it has been performed. So I'm very much thankful to you, all of you, from the core of heart. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Akhilesh, sir. Thank you so much, Akhilesh, sir.
Okay,
Thank
sir.
you,
Thank
Dean,
you,
sir. Thank you,
Ganpati ji.
Monica, ma'am.
गणपति
Thank
जी,
you.
आपको मैं सुब्रमण्यम बोलता हूँ,
Yes,
वेंकट
yes.
सुब्रमण्यम बोलता हूँ, क्योंकि मुझे वो बहुत अच्छा लगता है मुझे, लेकिन आपने कहा वो गणपति बोलना है, तो भविष्य में गणपति रखूंगा आपको मैं.